You're listening to episode 121, The Hardest Lessons I Learned Through Developing the Collective Conscious Certification Academy, and how you can apply these lessons that I learned to your journey to achieving something bigger than you've ever pursued before. Welcome to the Boss Bitch Rising podcast. My name is Coach Kale Roberts and I am your host. I am a mindset and transformational coach with over 10 years of experience as an entrepreneur. I went from being homeless in 2016 to building a multiple six-figure online coaching business. I am passionate about those that I have the opportunity to serve, and so I'm grateful you're here. My coaching method combines science, spirituality, and strategy, which elicits powerful transformations, leading you to massive elevation in your success. I am the founder of the Collective Conscious Coaching Academy, Institute for coaches, mentors, leaders, guides, and healers. This is where I develop influential, heart-centered people. I share weekly episodes inside the Boss Bitch Rising podcast where I discuss subjects like psychology, the subconscious mind, human energetics, manifestation, business strategy, and more. I'm excited to hop into our next episode and I'm so grateful you're here. Now let's rise up. Welcome back, my love, to another episode of the Boss Bitch Rising podcast. As always, I am so grateful you're here with me in today's episode. And today's episode, I am celebrating. I've also been crying a lot since last week when I sent off the certifications for the Collective Conscious Certification Academy to the accreditation organization. Now, if you have been listening to the podcast or if you follow me on social media, you know that I've been writing the textbooks and modalities for the certifications inside of the Collective Conscious Certification Academy for about the last year and a half. I've sacrificed a lot. I've dedicated myself fully to this process, and this was the biggest undertaking that I've ever committed myself to in my entire life. So this has been an entire journey, an entire up level, and just really a process of growth for me. And I'm so excited. I'm feeling a wash of so many emotions. So last Thursday, I sent off these certifications to the accreditation organization, and it'll take them about 6 to 8 weeks for them to review the entire certification academy, come back with any questions or edits they need, and then for me to get the stamp of approval that these certifications are accredited, fully accredited, and internationally recognized professional development certifications for coaches, leaders, mentors, and spiritual guides. And I am just so excited. I'm so relieved. I'm feeling just so many emotions. So I'm relieved because this process has been the biggest commitment that I've ever dedicated myself to. And the bulk of the work is finally done. Now I actually get to do the things that are fun for me, which is the education portion, getting the material out in front of as many people as I possibly can, doing content creation. That's fun for me. That stuff is just what I geek out on. The writing process was, oh my gosh, it was just tedious for me because although I do enjoy writing, literally writing 8 textbooks back to back to back to back. I wrote 8 textbooks in exactly a year's time. And it's crazy looking back, like Instagram has the memories that pop up for you. The same day, this is so crazy for me to even think about. The same day that I sent off the Certification Academy as a whole to the accreditation organization, that very day, 1 year prior, is when my first certification course was released. So I actually ran these certifications as a beta round for up to 10 people. I had 7 participants inside of that beta round process. And these people were just such an invaluable piece of what I was working on because they were giving me real-time feedback. As these certifications were released, they were the first ones to see it and go through the content. They were the ones to give me feedback. They were the ones to go apply it right away. So I've been seeing a group of 7 people transform through this powerful work over this last year. I've seen them apply it to their business, and I get to witness how much this has transformed their life, their business, and the lives of those that they get to serve. So this is how I know that the certifications and the work inside of the Kollective Conscious Certification Academy is going to be powerful. And now that I get to go out in the world and do what I love most, which is the education portion of it and the content creation portion of it, I know that this is just going to explode and transform the lives of so many people. Hopefully, my vision is hundreds of thousands of people within my lifetime. But yeah, so I sent off the certifications, and I'm honestly just feeling so many different emotions. As I mentioned, I'm feeling relieved because the writing process wasn't necessarily something that I fully enjoyed doing. I'm also feeling excited because now I finally get to do the things that I enjoy, the education and the content creation. I get to be in front of people, connecting with people, sharing this content with people. And I'm just so excited about that. I'm also honestly kind of feeling exhausted because I am a crazy woman who thinks that writing 8 different textbooks or modalities in just 1 year is a good idea. But I am just so freaking proud of myself that I stuck to this process. Again, this was the biggest undertaking that I have ever committed myself to in my entire life. And there were some really exciting moments that happened along the way, like pre-selling over $20,000 when this entire certification academy was just an idea. When I finally decided to commit myself to this process, I announced it on my social media, and I announced that I would open up to 10 spots to the certification beta round process. And of course, these people were going to be able to go through the academy, and the academy is likely going to evolve over time as well, but they would get to see the material first and learn from it first, and then be grandfathered in once the whole certification academy is accredited. And so many people, I was actually really surprised at how many people were excited to participate, even though there wasn't anything created yet, even though there wasn't anything that they could learn from yet. But I'm so glad that I announced it and I opened up this space for people to come in, because it really allowed me the opportunity to see how this work can create massive ripple effects when applied. So the 7 students that were going through the academy in the beta round were applying it right away to themselves, their life, within their family, their smaller networks, and their business. And they saw the most powerful transformations, of course, first when they applied it to themselves and they integrated these teachings into their framework, their own personal framework and philosophies. And then they started going out into their friends group and their families and applying these principles, especially like the emotional intelligence and learning how to communicate more effectively. Those are the 2 certifications that I really think had the most impact and weight in every single individual who went through the beta round. Just seeing them come back excited, like, oh my God, I had this conversation that normally would be triggering or challenging or I would run from. I was able to have this conversation, have it effectively, be grounded in my emotion, but still express my emotion, and at the end get something better than they could have imagined. And now they're cultivating better relationships with their spouse, better relationships with their children, better relationships with the people that they serve, better relationships with their people in their niche. And it's just so exciting, right? Like, I'm just so grateful that I gave myself permission to invite people in before it was even ready and perfect. I wouldn't say that I'm a perfectionist by any means, but sometimes I get a little insecure if especially something in business isn't polished. I feel insecure, like these people are going to judge me, blah, 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 right? We have all of these beliefs. But I really allowed myself to step into being open to being pleasantly surprised, being open and willing to adapt, be flexible, to learn and evolve through this process. And it really has been a process of evolution. It's really been a journey of growth, and I'm just so grateful for, even though there has been so many frustrating and challenging moments throughout this whole process, I'm grateful for all of them because they've really allowed me the opportunity to grow and blossom in ways that I would never have otherwise. But I really have to be honest with you. The process of writing and publishing the Collective Conscious Certification Academy was not easy at all. In fact, I really wanted to give up on this so many times. And again, this is probably another reason why I'm so grateful that I opened it up for the beta round, because I not only made this commitment to myself, but now I was committing to these people who are going through the beta round. This whole journey really tested me in many ways, and it really pushed me to grow. And it also allowed me space to feel my emotions and be honest about my emotions a little bit more deeply. I cried many times from feeling so frustrated and burnt out through this process. I resisted writing because I was so tired from feeling consumed with the content. And honestly, I had to sacrifice a lot to get here. Really committing to writing 8 textbooks in 1 year's time, writing back to back to back, was honestly a crazy ass commitment, if I do say so myself. I will be more realistic with myself from now on, but I'm also glad that I put such strict time limits on myself. And it really forced me, I had to sacrifice a lot, but it really forced me to get focused. And honestly, in the past, I've been a habitual procrastinator or somebody who leaves things unfinished. So there's so many different lessons that I've learned, and I really can't wait to share them with you in today's episode. But I will say this, through all the frustration, all the tears, all the stubborn resistance, I still stuck to this process because I knew deep down I was being called to share this work for a reason much bigger than myself. In fact, when this calling first came in, when it first was put on my heart, I kept saying, nope, not me. But the calling kept getting louder. The pull to share this work kept getting stronger with each day that passed. With each day that I kept saying no, the calling kept coming in louder and stronger. So finally I gave in, but I didn't take any action for the first 6 months. So the calling first came in June of 2020. And I didn't start the writing process until January of 2021. But once I started writing, I knew that I had to put pretty firm deadlines or else this would never get finished. So in June of 2020, of course, all gyms, everything was shut down. So I was going to this $1 million neighborhood, which is like 5 minutes from my house. It sits on top of this big ass hill. It's actually on top of a mountain. So I'd park at the bottom of the mountain, hike this big ass hill. It's like a 1/2 mile hill all the way to the top. And then you're in the $1 million neighborhood. And, of course, this was great cardio for me, but you're on this beautiful mountain. You can overlook the entire valley that I live in. So it was just refreshing in many different ways. It helped me clear my mind. It helped me get my heart rate up. And while I was hiking in this $1 million neighborhood, I had this calling put on my heart. And the first time that it came in, I kind of assessed it. Like, what is this? What am I being asked to do? No, I don't think this is for me. No. So I really did assess it for a little bit that first time that it came in. And then I said, nope, not me. And then a couple days later, it came back in a little bit louder, a little bit stronger, a little bit clearer that next time. And I said, no, a little bit faster. And then a couple days later, it came back in a little bit louder, a little bit stronger, a little bit clearer. And I was just like, what the fuck? No, like no means no. I am not doing this. And I said no because I knew how much commitment and sacrifice it would take to get me to where I am today. And I didn't want to commit myself to that much work. And so I kept saying no, I kept saying no. And then finally, I think it was the 3rd or the 4th time that this calling came in, I ended up mentioning it to one of the girls that was in a mastermind that I was participating in. And she's like, oh my God, wait, tell me more. Let's talk about this. This is amazing. She's like, the world needs this. She's like, you're already an amazing coach, but this is something else. So let's talk about this. So we actually hashed it out for about an hour. We got on the phone call. We hashed it out. And I was like, but girl, this is going to be a lot of work. And she's like, so you've done a lot of work in other areas of your life. Why are you afraid of this? And part of it, I think, was imposter syndrome. And the other part was I'm sometimes fucking lazy, if I can be honest with you. And I just did not want to do this much work. But the calling kept coming in, kept coming in, kept coming in. So she actually invited me to give myself permission. Shout out to Lauren Allen. I fucking love you. She allowed me the permission to just sit in this space of not making a decision. She's like, why do you feel like you have to make a decision on this right now? She was like, why don't you just sit with it and see where life pulls you and then go from there? If this is meant to be, it will be no matter what. So stop resisting it. She's so freaking wise. Man, I love her. But I allowed myself that, I allowed myself to just sit with it. And there were a couple other loose ends in my business that I needed to tie up before I could actually commit myself to this process. So I was like, okay, let's work on those loose ends. Let's tie up those loose ends and see what happens. We'll go from there. So I sat with it for 6 months before I started the writing process in January of 2021. But once all of those loose ends were tied up, I was like, okay, I really think this is something that I am passionate about. I am passionate about developing better communicators. I am passionate about sharing the good teaching of emotional intelligence and how that applies to leadership. I want to help develop better leaders in this world. And I was already doing that in one sense in my coaching business, but now I get to do that in a more expanded sense within the Certification Academy. So in the past, habitually, I have either been a procrastinator or somebody who eagerly works on things, but only leaves them about 90% complete, and then I move on to the next thing. I think we can call this shiny object syndrome because I would do this a lot. And that's the reason why I had so many loose ends in my business, because I would get really excited about things and then only leave them 90% done, meaning they're not complete, and then I'd move on to something else. It's, in a sense, half-assing things in your business, and I knew that I could not do that, either procrastinate or half-ass things by leaving them 90% complete. If I was going to commit myself to the writing process, I had to fully commit, meaning I would have to become a different individual, meaning I would have to operate my business differently, meaning I would have to structure my life differently. And I felt really comfortable in the life that I was living, but I also knew that I was downplaying myself. I also knew that I wasn't living up to my fullest potential. And I had to come to terms with that about myself before I could ever commit to this process. So I really knew that if I was actually going to step into this calling, I had to approach this entire thing differently than I've ever done anything before. So I set deadlines and structured a somewhat realistic timeline of when I wanted to get this out into the world, when I wanted it to be complete. And in a year's time, I had written 8 different textbooks and modalities. Now, again, that year was challenging and difficult. I pumped out one modality textbook every 6 to 8 weeks. And when one was done, I would immediately begin writing the next. Like I said, the first 5 flowed really smoothly. I was excited, I was motivated, I was passionate about the writing, and I couldn't wait to share it with the world. But right around month 7 into the writing process, I hit that proverbial wall. I was tired and I just needed a break. Now, don't get me wrong, I was traveling a lot in 2021. I actually think every single month except for September, October, and November, I traveled. So I was doing a lot. I was traveling a lot and I was writing a lot. I was working a lot. But I was really enjoying life in many ways. I just felt really tired from writing. I felt a lot of pressure from getting this done and out into the world. I felt so much pressure to work. So when I wasn't traveling, I was working. And I said no to so many social outings. I spent countless long, late nights writing. Weekends also usually consisted of going to the gym for an hour or two, then spending hours writing, and then family time only. I was not going out really. Well, come to the end of 2021, I really honestly was just so burnt out and tired from the writing process. I knew that taking a break would make me feel guilty, so I just wanted to get it finished, but I also didn't want to half-ass it. So I set a firm boundary on myself that I will not travel again until these certs were fully published and accredited. And that took another 6 months. I haven't traveled in the last 6 months, and I love traveling. So this was a really good motivation for me to get things done. And the last 6 months of the writing process, if I'm quite honest with you, were the most challenging. I had to let go of 2 employees for various reasons, which for obvious reasons put a lot more work on me. Several of my friends weren't being understanding about my boundaries and commitments, which honestly made me feel like a bad friend for staying so committed to this goal. But also it makes me feel like I had a lack of support. And I also felt grossly misunderstood by some of the people who I thought I could really count on, which was obviously disappointing to me. I hit several unexpected detours in the accreditation submittal process. It took 2 months longer than I thought it would. And I had to radically up-level the way that I was operating the back end of my business. But of course, the way life loves to work, that cheeky little bitch, is these challenges taught me the most. So here, without further ado in today's episode, here is what I learned through writing these certifications. Number one, not everyone is going to see your vision, and that is okay. But what you need to understand is you don't need to constantly explain yourself and your vision to people. If they get it, great. If they don't, oh well. You've got to keep moving forward no matter what. We are not playing small anymore. We're not downplaying our calling, our vision, our goals to fit the outlook or the beliefs and understanding of other people. That was really the first hard lesson that I had to learn, because as I was excited to finally announce that I was stepping into this calling, as I was, sharing it with especially my inner circle, I got a lot of people that were so supportive and so encouraging. And then I got a lot of people that were like, well, what makes you so qualified? And then they would speak all of these doubts or limiting beliefs into my vision. And so I had to learn really quick to understand who to share my vision to and who not to speak it with. And also, not everyone's going to see the vision. So just because you excitedly share something, they might not get it or understand, and that's okay. But don't allow their lack of belief or lack of sight in your vision to affect how you're moving forward or the actions that you're going to take in order to get there. This is where, lesson number 2 comes in, is really understanding that you're going to need to get very clear on where your boundaries are, not only with yourself, but with those around you. If you're trying to accomplish something big, bigger than you've ever done before, then you're going to likely have to restructure parts of your life, how you communicate, and especially the things that you're saying yes to. Understanding what certain essential things in your life are and what the essentials are to get to your vision and your version of success, understanding those essentials and what's non-essential, then even going deeper and identifying some of the habits and behaviors that you're currently participating in that are keeping you stuck from achieving success faster. This is going to all aid you in understanding how to set boundaries and stick to them without feeling guilty. And please understand that if you're setting new boundaries, most people aren't going to like them at first, especially if you're typically giving into their desires or demands when you're around them more than you're giving into your own. During this time, you're going to see things a lot more clearly, like how true your relationships really are. How many will understand the sacrifices that it's going to take to get you to what you're being called to? Some people will understand and support your vision as best as they can. Some people won't understand, but they'll still try their best to support you. And a few won't understand and probably won't even try to support you. In fact, they might even discourage you by placing seeds of doubt in your mind, by down-talking your vision, and even your abilities to achieve what you desire to achieve. It's going to be important to understand how you want to handle these situations because it's going to happen eventually. It's just the inevitable. So understanding what to expect and how you're going to handle it when it does come up is something that's going to be really important as a key to your success. Now, I actually want to give an example. This actually happened to me with a very close friend of mine who was really supportive through the first year of the writing process. But like I mentioned earlier in this episode, the last 6 months were really frustrating and really challenging for me. It really was those growing pains. It was forcing me to up-level my mindset, my operations, and my business, how I was approaching this whole thing. And I see the bigger vision, right? And I'm explaining this bigger vision, but I'm also explaining to my friend how frustrated I'm currently feeling and the challenges that I'm currently going through. And this friend, like I mentioned, was very supportive through the first year of the writing process. But the second that I started mentioning how I was feeling and the challenges that I was going through and the things that I was experiencing that were forcing me to grow and up level, this person came back to me and was like, wow, and this is really worth it for you? And I was like, well, I mean, it sucks, but this is what's required to get to this next level. Like I'm literally up leveling and you have to fight. Like if I use the analogy of you're playing, Mario Brothers, and in order to get to that next level, you have to fight the big boss on that lower level in order to get to the next level. So I'm like, I feel like I'm just on the verge of this big up level and I have to fight the big boss before I can get there. And so, yes, of course, like I'm going through these frustrations, these challenges, these learning lessons, these growing pains, but I know that it's all preparing me to get to that next level. So when I'm there, I have all of these systems in place. My mindset is now up leveled. My belief system is now up leveled. Everything, right? And then this person came back saying, well, it doesn't really sound like you know what you're doing. Maybe you should just go get a real job, which for obvious reasons really hurt my heart, especially because they were very successful, or excuse me, supportive for the last year of the writing process. But it's like right when I came to a challenge and I was having, a little bit of difficulty getting through the challenge, they instantly doubted me. And it made me wonder, did you always have those seeds of doubt in your head and now you're planting them in mine? And so, I set a boundary like, hey, this actually isn't helpful for me in problem solving. I don't want to even consider the doubts. I have this calling. I see the vision. I have the belief that I'm going to get there. I need to think more expansively and think about solutions instead of giving up. The only time I will ever fail is if I give up. And that's what I truly believe in life, is the only time we ever truly do fail is when we give up. Anything that we might maybe perceive as a failure is really just a learning lesson. And if we allow ourselves to be open, aware, honest, and willing to learn, we can learn through the learning lesson and continue to grow forward. It might be in a different direction, but the only time we ever fail is when we give up. So of course, I was sharing my feelings around all of this with this friend, and I was like, I think maybe it's best for us to, stop this conversation now because it's not really doing anything positive for me. So maybe we can circle back around in a few days. Well, the next day this friend calls me and I let this friend know kind of how that conversation affected me the rest of that day. It really put me kind of in not the best frame of mind. And so I put a boundary at the very beginning of the conversation of, I don't really want to talk about my business anymore with you. I feel like maybe you don't really understand. You're not a business owner, so you don't really understand the challenges that most entrepreneurs and business owners go through. It's just the inevitable. We are having to think of a million different things at once and problem solve and constantly just overcome. And it's just inevitable. We're going to hit roadblocks and bumps along the way. We're going to have those challenges and those low points. And that's okay. It's part of the process. But it's how you're thinking about these challenges and yourself and your abilities that gets you through them much more quickly. And, so I just shared this with her and I was like, maybe we probably shouldn't talk about my business, especially right now, because I just don't feel like you really understand or get it. And that's okay, but I just don't think this is going to do anything positive for me. So she's like, okay, no worries. Great. Well, later in that conversation, again, coming back in with the doubt, the seeds of negativity, and I felt like it was like a ploy to try and bring me down. So I set the boundary again of how I felt, how what she was saying was making me feel, and that I would like to end the conversation there, and reiterated the boundary of, I don't think it's best for us to continue to talk about my business because you don't understand. I don't have the capacity to continue to try to explain this to you, and I don't need to explain it to you. I would like for you to understand and I would like for you to be supportive, but it doesn't sound like you're being understanding. Therefore, it's hard for you to support me. And so maybe we can talk about other things. And unfortunately, that was like the last time I spoke to this friend. I set a really firm boundary. I really tried my best to clearly communicate how that topic of conversation was making me feel and how it was affecting me on a deeper level. And they just didn't fully understand. And that's okay, right? There's going to be parts in your journey where you're going to have to ground yourself, especially when you're feeling maybe a trigger in your emotions or like you're misunderstood, especially by the people who are the closest to you. Try your best to communicate your feelings. Try your best to communicate the boundary and where it's at. And if they don't understand, if they don't get it, that's okay, but you still have to continue to move forward. In this journey, there's been other friends that, because I work for myself, I make my own schedule, I have the freedom to pretty much do whatever I want, whenever I want. I've had a few friends, especially over this last, year or so, not understand how firm of a commitment I made and how strict my boundaries are around my social commitments. And I really, really limited my social outing time, where if it was just a night out, and it wasn't something that I was really excited about, then I said no to it. And so most of the social outings that I've been saying yes to over this last year were celebrations, either birthdays or congratulations. One of my girlfriends just graduated from law school, so we did like a nice dinner and a night out and things like that. I was saying yes to because those were things that I found to be very important. But just a night out for just a night out, for me, was so non-essential, and I was saying no to those things. And I also had a couple friends that didn't understand, because habitually I would be like, yeah, sure, let's go, let's do it. I was the first one ready to go. And now I was saying no more than I was saying yes. And so I had a couple people just really not understand and even call me a fake friend or whatever else. And of course, those things hurt. But understanding that there's going to be a lot of people and a lot of environments even that naturally weed themselves out of your life during this process of fully committing to your goal. These are blessings in disguise. Of course they hurt. Of course they hurt. But it's something that you have to understand and realize that some people are in your life for a lifetime, some people are in your life for a reason or a lesson, and some people are in your life just for a season. And as you continue to grow and evolve, and sometimes grow past or evolve past your inner circle, this is going to make some people uncomfortable. They're not at the same emotional or vibrational level as you, so they won't be able to fully see, feel, hear, or understand what you are. Therefore, it might be hard for them to support you or stand by you in this process. And just reaffirming and reassuring with yourself that you are safe, that you are on the right path, and that God is always working in your favor to provide you with the things that you need for your continued growth and evolution to that next level version of yourself. These things are going to help you to continue to grow forward. And this is kind of what brings us into lesson number 3 that I had to learn, which is time is the most precious resource that we all have. Once it's gone, you can never get it back. So be mindful of when, where, how, and with whom and why you are spending your time. During my journey of creating the Collective Conscious Certification Academy, and especially during these last 6 months, I really limited my social time and was pretty much only saying yes to those celebrations like I had mentioned. And again, this really upset some people. Some people just did not understand. They understood that I make my own schedule, and so I'm not saying yes to a boss, right? Or I'm not making commitments to somebody else. These commitments are made to myself. So they didn't understand that I was strongly staying committed and firm on the commitments that I've made. And I wasn't just going to give in just to give in to, a night out, which wasn't going to do anything for me. So lesson number 4 kind of pieces off all of the last 3 lessons that I learned, which is developing quality communication, which is key, especially when you're trying to articulate your wants and needs during this time, as well as how to deal with the possibility of conflict that arises from when you set those necessary boundaries. This is so important to understand how to communicate, and this is part of why I start with emotional intelligence as the first certification, a part of the Collective Conscious Certification Academy. Inside of the emotional intelligence certification, we talk about how to understand your emotions and your emotional needs, how to maybe identify the emotions and emotional needs of other people, then understanding how to communicate, how to articulate those emotional needs, then also understanding conflict resolution. When conflicts arise, how can you appropriately articulate your feelings without being in the emotion, but getting the other person on the other side of the conversation to understand your emotion, understanding your wants, needs, and desires in those emotions, and then how you can both grow together to a solution. Grow together through finding a solution, which is just such an important piece of the puzzle. Now, based on the story that I just shared with you and, those few growing pains, not everyone is going to understand. Not everyone is going to be at the same level as you, and that's okay. But you have to be, again, emotionally self-regulated enough where you're reaffirming and self-validating through this entire journey so that you're not relying on the validation of other people through this journey. And how can you do that? Well, lesson number 5 is make sure that you are on top of your self-care. This has been so important for me. Really thinking about, again, those essentials and non-essentials. What's valuable and important to me? Of course, quality time with my friends is important, but going out and drinking and spending money in that way was not important or something that I found value in. So sometimes when my friends would invite me out, I would let them know, I'm really sorry, but that doesn't fit into the structure of, what I'm committing to at this point in my life. However, would you be open to doing this other thing with me instead? I would still love to see you. I would still love to spend time with you, but going out at bars, drinking, that doesn't fit into my commitment right now. But again, I would love to see you. So let's do something else. And I would extend that, to my friends, showing them that I still care for them. I still want to see them. I still want to spend time with them. But maybe we can do something that's going to be a little bit more constructive for me and fit into my schedule. Now, some people might call this selfish, and that's okay. But again, understanding your essentials and non-essentials. What is going to help restore your energy, especially because I was so firmly committed to my goals and I was, quite frankly, very burnt out through this whole process. I needed to make sure that how I was spending my time was the most valuable way possible. And of course, I wanted to still be around my friends, but I needed to be participating in those activities that were going to restore my energy instead of drain me even further. So that's the reason why I was saying no to certain social outings and saying yes to things like going on hikes, going to spa days, just chilling out, going and watching the sunset with a friend and just chilling. Those were things that were adding value back into my life. And again, trying to articulate those things to my friends so that they could understand where I was coming from was an extremely important piece that I had to learn through this whole journey. In this journey, I learned that I must be willing to be flexible, to adjust, to adapt. I really needed to understand that although not everyone is going to see my vision, not everyone is going to understand the journey, but it is my responsibility to be clear, to be kind, and to communicate as effectively as I know how through this process. Although I might feel a lack of support or although I might feel misunderstood by certain people, I still need to stay open and soft, if you will, right? Not be so rigid and firm on my expectations of what I expect from other people, but be soft and just be like, you know what? I know that you don't understand this part of my journey right now, and that's okay. I still love you. I'm still holding the space, but maybe right now is not the best time for us. And when I get through this and I have more space and availability, then hopefully, we can still come back together at that time. But essentially, through this whole process, learning to be selfish with yourself in the right ways has been an invaluable piece to the puzzle. A lot of people might listen to this episode and think, damn, Kale, you're freaking selfish. And that's okay. That's okay if you see me that way. Some people might listen to this episode and understand the sacrifice, the dedication, the focus, and the commitment that it's going to take in order to create something bigger than yourself. My vision for the Collective Conscious Certification Academy is to affect the lives of over 100,000 people in my lifetime. Now, I'm 31 years old at the time of this recording. I have 40, 50, 60 years, maybe more, of being able to teach this content. Realistically, 100,000 people is a small number in that period of time. Millions of people really is that bigger vision that I have. And when I say this, I'm also thinking about and including the ripple effect that I create. If I help change the way that you communicate, if I help teach you emotional intelligence, if I help you develop into that next level leader that you are, then you go out and you help a couple hundred people in your lifetime. And then those people go out and affect the lives of a couple hundred more people in their lifetime. That's over 100,000 people right there. And that is the magnitude of the ripple effect that we have the ability to create when we step into the deeper callings that force us to grow, that really allow us the space to get strict with ourselves and be more honest with ourselves than ever before. I've learned some really, really, really hard lessons through the development of the Collective Conscious Certification Academy. But they've all brought me to this next level version of myself, this next level leader that I have become through this process, and now have the ability to help develop other people into the next level version of themselves, the next level leader that they can become, and go out and affect the lives of so many people in their lifetime. So I'm just so grateful that you've been a part of this journey with me, and I'm excited for you to continue to be a part of this journey with me. Of course, please go check out the Collective Conscious website. That's collectiveconscious.com. Collective is spelled with a K, conscious is spelled with a C. The website is beautiful. It's finally published, and I can't wait to share it with the world. Inside of the Collective Conscious Certification Academy, I am currently hosting a free workshop called Impact and Influence. Impact and Influence is a free workshop to help you stand out in the online space as the trusted authority, as the leader in your niche, how to create the know, like, trust factor with your niche, and then how to build a massive community of people who adore you, who are raving about you, who trust you, and just how to create a deeper impact and influence in the world, which is, of course, the reason why I named it Impact and Influence. If you want to be a part of that, go to collectiveconscious.com and you'll see it up there in the toolbar. Please go check out the website. But again, my love, thank you so much for being a part of this journey with me, and until next week. Thank you for joining me in today's episode. I am so grateful you are here with us today. If you loved today's episode, take a screenshot, share it on social media, and tag me in it, because not only do I love to feel all the love, but I also love to hear your feedback. I love connecting with my audience, so let's get connected on social media. Find me, I am the Kale Collective on Instagram and kale.collective on TikTok. I love sharing value as much as I can, so I would love to get connected with you more further. Until next time, my love, rise up.